Welcome back to The Explainer. Okay, so today we're looking at a guy who, wasn't a legendary battlefield commander, and he definitely isn't remembered for soaring, poetic speeches. But make no mistake, long before the United States was a global power, John Adams was literally the moral backbone of early America. We're going to explore how his deeply held personal values, specifically his unwavering commitment to doing what was right over what was popular, really drove some of the absolutely toughest political decisions in American history. Let's get right into it.
So think about this for a second. Would you defend your absolute worst enemy if you knew deep down it was the morally right thing to do? It's a really heavy question, right? Because it's easy to stand by your principles when everyone agrees with you. But what happens when standing by your values makes you the most hated person in the room? Well, this exact dilemma is where the true story of John Adams really kicks off.
Part 1. The Pursuit of Justice.
Picture this. It's 1770, right in the volatile aftermath of the Boston Massacre. The public demand in the colonies was pretty simple: immediate bloody revenge against the British soldiers. But Adams, well, he had an absolutely unshakable devotion to the rule of law. Even though he personally despised unfair British policies, his core values dictated that justice isn't just situational. Every single person deserves a fair trial. So despite the massive backlash, he took the case.
And that brings us to his legendary legal defense, which was rooted in one absolutely core belief. As he put it, facts are stubborn things. Taking this case made Adams a target of immense public fury. His entire reputation was on the line here. But through his powerful legal arguments in court, he actually successfully defended the soldiers, helping most of them avoid severe punishment. He proved, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that he valued the integrity of the law and true justice way above his own personal popularity.
Moving on to Part 2, the voice for independence.
So Adams wasn't just a lawyer defending the law. He was actually the primary engine in Congress arguing for a complete, total break from Britain. In 1776, his sheer willpower in pushing the Declaration of Independence forward was so absolutely critical that Thomas Jefferson later flat out admitted, "John Adams was our giant." He literally wouldn't take no for an answer.
Just look at the immense escalation of his duty to this new nation. From driving the Declaration in 1776 to stepping up as the very first vice president in 1789 and ultimately taking the presidency in 1797. At every single step along the way, he was carrying the immense weight of a really fragile American experiment.
Which brings us to Part 3, loyalty in the shadows.
Stepping into the totally uncharted role of vice president meant operating pretty much entirely in George Washington's shadow. Adams famously and honestly pretty hilariously joked that it was the most insignificant office ever invented. But here is where his values really shine. Despite his battered ego, his loyalty to the country completely superseded his personal pride. He knew that any public fracture in leadership could just instantly destroy what the revolution had built.
All right, Part 4, choosing peace over popularity.
Taking the presidency in 1797 meant Adams was immediately staring down the barrel of a massive international crisis. Caught right between a warring France and Britain and reeling from the crazy bribery demands of the XYZ affair, the American public, and even Adams' own political allies, were literally screaming for war. The pressure to just give in and conform was immense.
Yet despite all of that, he chose peace. Honestly, it was political suicide. But once again, Adams' moral compass completely overrode popular opinion. He knew that a war with a European superpower right then would just completely bankrupt the infant nation. So he absorbed the fury of his own party, and he willingly sacrificed his re-election chances, all to ensure America actually survived.
And that leads us to Part 5, the ultimate democratic test.
Because he chose peace, it ended up costing him the 1800 election to his bitter rival Thomas Jefferson. But this crucible moment defined his ultimate value. Think about it. At a time when the global norm was changing leaders through assassinations or civil wars, Adams established a completely revolutionary precedent. He accepted defeat, and he walked away quietly, proving to the entire world that a peaceful transfer of power was actually possible, a real game-changer.
Finally, Part 6, Final Years and Legacy.
In his final years, Adams ironically rekindled a profound letter-writing friendship with his old rival Jefferson. Which leads us to this completely unbelievable alignment of history. 50. On July 4, 1826, exactly 50 years to the day after the signing of the Declaration of Independence, both Adams and Jefferson passed away. America lost two of its absolute greatest founding giants on the exact same day, half a century after their greatest triumph. You really can't make that up.
As Adams lay on his deathbed, his reported final words were simply, "Thomas Jefferson survives." It's incredibly poignant, especially considering he was completely unaware that hundreds of miles away in Virginia, Jefferson had actually passed away just a few hours prior.
When we step back and look at the whole scope of his life, John Adams didn't just help create America, he kept it alive. He wasn't the celebrated general, he wasn't the poetic writer, but because his personal values placed justice, independence, and peace way above his own popularity, he successfully navigated the nation through its absolute most perilous moments.
Doing the right thing rarely meant doing the easy thing for John Adams. So I'm going to leave you with this to chew on. Does a democracy survive on its popular leaders or its principled ones? Because when the pressure is at its absolute highest, it's the difficult moral choices made by architects like Adams that truly sustain a nation. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep asking those tough questions.